How did a Chinese team manage to revive an American brand that was on the verge of bankruptcy after acquiring it for just 7.2 million US dollars and achieve break-even profitability within only 1 year? So how exactly was such a performance achieved? Today, I want to share the story of the Gallery. So what we really need to understand is that acquisitions like this are not just about buying a bunch of SKUs, but about acquiring a place that already exists in the minds of American consumers, a mature aesthetic and content style. First, let's talk about the past and present of the Gallery. Why was it once so strong, only to file for bankruptcy again in 2003 and close all of its stores? The Gallery started out in California in 1979, originally as a store selling posters. Later, it grew into a brand with a very clear positioning. Its positioning was to define itself as modern, affordable luxury, called modern glamour. In other words, it wasn't cheap, but it was trendy, dramatic, and photogenic. What makes it impressive has never been its functionality, but rather its sense of aesthetic trends combined with scene-based displays and a style language that can be replicated. What you're buying isn't just a lamp, but a home that looks as beautiful as a magazine. So, from its very DNA, the Gallery is an American brand that offers a complete solution, where you shop according to scene-based logic. So, why is the Gallery worth buying? What exactly did the Chinese management team do right? And what kind of inspiration does this bring to brands like ours that are going global? So their approach is very smart. They start by using high-margin, small items to generate cash flow and encourage repeat purchases. Many of the Gallery's small items, like throw pillows or small rugs, can clearly appeal to their target customers. Then, by pairing these products within specific scenes, they drive related purchases of larger furniture pieces, raising the average order value from $200 or $300 to $500 or $600, even $700 or $800. Looking at their operations this way, the Gallery actually went through a bankruptcy restructuring back in 2009, and since then, its performance has fluctuated repeatedly. So why did it gradually decline again? After decades of rapid growth, they opened a large number of physical stores. However, for lifestyle retail brands like this, there is a harsh rule. When you rely on offline expansion to drive growth, you end up being hurt by rent, inventory, and operational inefficiency. From then on, they began to shift toward a business model that focused primarily on online operations. According to what we know, in the US, they have kept their branding and social teams, which may consist of 3 to 5 people, a design team of 5 to 6 people, and a buying team of 2 to 3 people. Domestically, they placed their independent site operations and brand operations teams in Hangzhou, China. This not only improves operational efficiency, since Chinese people are highly competitive, hardworking, and intelligent, but also keeps labor costs very low. A brand is an asset, but sometimes physical stores become liabilities when it comes to cash flow. To create a more compelling story, they need a brand to fulfill their brand dream. Their core business model has always been OEM, supplying goods to American distributors. What they really need on the brand side is a deep understanding of the American consumer market, led primarily by buyers and designers. And these are precisely the areas that companies originating from the Chinese supply chain tend to lack. The company behind Jixia, Carrot Home, is a local American online home goods player, but it is actually more adept at managing supply chains in a market like China, where supply chain efficiency is highly valued. In January 2024, they completed an acquisition for $7.2 million, securing the Gallery's IP and e-commerce related assets to carry out a comprehensive online restructuring. So why did Jixia want to acquire the Gallery? In fact, the core reason behind this, as we speculate, is simply to complete the overall logic of building its online brand. So why do I most recommend and endorse brand acquisition as the best way to go global? It's not that everyone needs to have the money to buy a brand, but rather that I've seen too many 0 to 1 processes. Through Jixia's acquisition of the Gallery, I think there are a few insights we can gain, especially for traditional companies and sellers looking to expand overseas. First of all, when you don't know how to find an entry point, acquiring a small but well-known foreign brand might be the best way in. Here, I have to mention that we actually acquired a very well-known foreign brand in the board game industry, and after bringing it to China, we improved the supply chain and operational efficiency, which led to some very impressive results. The second point is that acquisition is not about picking up something cheap, it's about buying into the minds of the users, buying the brand's name, its tone, its aesthetic team, and its branding team. Coming back to this, it's actually a classic example of a collaborative model where America defines aesthetics and China defines efficiency. After Jixia took over the Gallery, where did the new momentum come from? How did we further improve our operational efficiency? In the early stages after taking over, the gallery's online operational efficiency was only about 2 to 3 million US dollars per month, and it was continuously operating at a loss. However, after the supply chain investment and efficiency were restructured, its pre-order sales could reach 10 to 50 million US dollars. Their photography team was also outsourced domestically, but the brand's aesthetics, lighting direction, and artistic guidance were all led and reviewed by the American brand, which created a positive cycle for the team's own style in terms of light, composition, and overall tone. The third point is definitely the immense value of their buyers. The style of product selection always maintains dominance and creates a very high barrier to entry. In the process of struggling and repeated exploration, the money you might lose could far exceed the cost of acquiring a small American brand. This is because when many Chinese brands go overseas, they encounter a lot of incompatibility. You don't know American aesthetics, you don't understand their culture, and you don't understand the users. So how can you move faster? I believe that borrowing a shell to lay an egg is the best approach. Try to avoid starting from scratch as much as possible. In the end, the trend of Chinese brands going global is unstoppable, and there are many, many ways for Chinese people to expand abroad. For example, Haier acquired Candy, the largest brand in Europe, and with that, they bought all of its online and offline channels. This is also a way for brands to go global. Or, for instance, Geely acquired a sub-brand of Volvo. And then there's a brand that makes tablecloths. We work together to take the brand overseas as well. However, most original teams are deeply rooted in Chinese aesthetics. They have a deep understanding of Chinese dining culture and know exactly what kind of dining tables, chairs, and tablecloths Chinese people like. But if you take the same products to the US without a local social or brand team, it's actually very hard to grasp what appeals to American tastes. So before going global, you must be very clear about what your customers actually want. During the entire acquisition process, we have to mention the tuition fee paid over the course of a full year from early 2024 to early 2025. That is, the huge cost of integration. After the handover was completed and operations began, for a whole year, it was still hovering on the edge of breaking, even in terms of gross profit. This is completely normal because it's a merger of two entirely different sets of values. The old team wanted to stick to the brand's tone, culture, and boundaries, while the new team pursued performance, efficiency, and growth. The real challenge wasn't in operations, but in finding a balance between growth and the brand. Previously, we had a failed case called Nabi's Fabrics. We took a very well-known store from Taobao in China. Speaking of offline, Z Gallerie originally grew from offline to online, and now they're moving back from online to offline. But this time, they're not targeting those heavy traditional stores, but rather flagship stores or pop-up shops. Why is that? Because they want to reconstruct their branding. What they're after isn't the operational efficiency of a single store, but the brand's exposure in a hot-selling region. So this is a form of offline brand media rather than purely a sales channel. Another example is that DCR around us acquired a brand like Z Gallerie. So when you really want to go global, this kind of approach, using an existing shell to incubate, might actually be a good way. But before setting out, you must really think carefully about whether we can learn a lot from a brand acquisition case like Z Gallerie. Alright, that's all for today's sharing. Thank you everyone.